temperature is this really interesting parameter in AI. And if you are using ChatGPT or, any image generator, it's not going to be obvious to you that this metric exists. So it's something that if you're a developer and you're working with what we call an API, which is basically like a key to the kingdom, right? Lets you communicate back and forth with a machine. You can set a parameter called temperature. And what's interesting about it is that parameter usually goes somewhere from 0 to 1. 0 is going to give you the most probable, right? Because these are statistical machines. And so, basically temperature allows you, it's like a damper on probability. You can open it wide up to 1, and that's going to give you the most novel, the most unique responses, or you can ratchet it down to 0, and that's going to give you the most frequent, the most probable. And if you set it at 5, it's going to be halfway in between, balanced. And so this was this huge light bulb moment for me when I discovered temperature, because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the system that I was studying 10 years ago, right? This was my idea about in computers, we call the space. So there's like structure and space, right? Structure is like things you cannot, it's fixed. It's like mass, right? It has weight, could be literally columns in a building. Space is the thing that we fill. And in machines, that's what sometimes we'll call it hallucination, because it will, think of it like Mad Libs, right? You have like the structure of a sentence, and then you have these blanks, and the machine will fill it in with a probability, right? It might be the most frequent word, or it could be the most random word, right? Now, when we're playing Mad Libs, we want the most random word, right? Because that makes it funny. And humor is creative. So, I think that's when we have machines that are operating and like filling in the blanks with weird words, like that's operating in creative mode. That's high temperature AI. But when we want to do a search, right, we want truth, we want facts. We definitely don't want AI to be making up words that fit in the blank, right? We want the word that has usually come next in the sentence. And so there you want to ratchet it down to 0. Now, it's not always going to give you the right word, right? It's not going to necessarily give you the most truthful word, but it is going to give you the most probable word. And so that, I think, is a really interesting way to look at creativity, this balance between structure and space and where we find ourselves on that spectrum. So for humans, I think this gets back to, how do we interact with rules? How do we feel about structure? Do we feel like structure is helpful to us? Do you enjoy when you are starting out doing something, following a recipe as a method of learning? And then, what happens if you're missing an ingredient in the kitchen, right? That's a creative act. You have to perform a substitution. All of a sudden, you have space to fill it with something, right? So even recipes can be very creative. We use them in the right way. But also, if you're somebody who every time somebody says no, you're like, oh, well, I'm going to do that anyways, you're going to be operating at a higher temperature, right? And so, you're likely to come up with a more unusual idea, right? Something other people haven't thought of. You're likely to see, beyond the trees in the forest.